We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the New Jerusalem. And we will sing Kadosh, Kadosh to the Lord of hosts, joining in the angels' choir, and forever we will be.
Well, welcome to the next chapter, the Thursday edition for this time slot on the Messianic Lamb Network. We are so glad to have you here today, and I am glad to have you here today. My name is Sandi Craig, and I am broadcasting right here from snowy Amarillo, Texas. Yeah, it's cold and it's snowy. I think the wind chill's been 8 degrees, and it's just lovely outside. Anyway, hallelujah for seasons, right? Anyway, like I said, we're glad to have you here. And there's a lot going to happen today on this show. So what you need to do right now is you need to call your neighbor, call your friends, text them, email them, whatever it is, and let them know the next chapter is on. And we have a great topic or topics of conversation today. We are going to be looking at when you are facing conflict in your home, when you're facing conflict raising your kids. You know, this series on facing conflict, is that not what we see today in this society? Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you a little about myself. My husband and I pastor a congregation here in Amarillo, Texas, and you can find out everything you want to find out at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Yeah, that is our website. And just to let you know, we have services at 2 p.m. on Saturday on Shabbat, where our tour portion, and we are live on Zoom, and you are always welcome to join us. Just let me know. You can email me and say, hey, Sandi, I want to join you for your tour portion, and we'll get you in there. Also, our services are live on YouTube at 5 p.m. Central Time. And then we have a Monday night Torah study, Torah talk at 7 p.m. Central. So you are welcome to join us for any of those. And the Torah talk on Mondays is also on Zoom. And anyway, there's a lot going on. But we also have a conference coming up. If you remember Eddie and Tammy, who've been joining us on the Monday Reason Show, they are going to be with us at our congregation on December 12th at 2 p.m. And if you are all over the nation, we're going to have, you can join us on YouTube Live, but we also may have Zoom going at the same time. So remember to look up our website, go email us, whatever you need to do, and you'll get the scoop. Yep, you will. Anyway, my husband and I also do a few other things. We do Monday morning War Room prayers here on the Messianic Lamb Video Network, as well as Let Us Reason Together, Monday, 8:45 this time slot, Walking in Spirit and Truth, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Central. And by the way, Tuesday this week, John did the whole show on a news update. So you want to tune into that. It's pretty good. He's pretty thorough, and he was to take 15 minutes and took 45. So you know, sometimes that's how it goes. So get a good news update with that show. And then, of course, this one. And you'll see us pop in here and there for other things as well. Anyway, that's a lot, and definitely enough about me. I want to also introduce you to Miss G.I. Joe. Man, what a warrior she is. She is all the way here from where? Toledo, Ohio. She was out for a while, and now she's back, and it's like she's never gone. She just slipped right back in. So anyway, what does she do? She does the War Room, and she is fighting for us all the time. She does Tuesday and Thursday War Room prayers. She's going to be, well, not Tuesday and Thursday, whatever the correct one is.
Just Thursdays.
Just Thursdays.
Just Thursdays. We have a new warrior that comes in for Tuesday War Rooms now. We have two new warriors.
Well, I will say this. Jonathan's up in April. Just FYI. Just saying. Just saying that.
Oh, is that around the time of Passover and first fruits, right?
Yeah, well, if we'll see what happens, but he officially start proceeding in April. Okay, that is the wrong subject for today. Anyway, I'm so glad that you're here with me on this show, and she's actually going to bring forth a topic today. And anyway, so it's going to be very, very good. But we're not alone. There's another one. Actually, there's a couple more. Miss Sherry Flannigan from Ashland, Mississippi, host of His Great Name and Thursday War Room Prayers, and and the conference that we do once a month, focusing and distracting times, and let's see, news and life. You're just got your hands in it all, teaching us and helping us to get through our day to day, Sherry.
Actually, compared to a lot of other people, I don't do that much. I do a conference once a month. I do the War Room once a week, and I do His Great Name, and every now and then I'll find a news, Four Corners News. So compared to a lot of people like Abigail and y'all and Mark, all of his show. Well, I do go on Mark's shows sometimes. And we're doing that contemplating the Constitution. I'm telling you what, that's very, very informative. Homeschool people out there, listen, Mark's got it down now. And then we go through each article and section and discuss it.
I love it. It is a great show. And that's why we need to, that actually, if we're homeschooling and we're believers and we know about this network, we should be using that at least once a week so that our kids can get that information and get it and understand it. Because I'm telling you, I don't even think the senators and congressmen understand what the Constitution says.
And we did a special on the electoral, on the Mark's putting the teachings I've done on it, but that's just all over His Great Name. But we did a special on that about the Electoral College and the legislatures, and how that may very well come up on this election stuff that's going on. So, and how all that works. That's very, very interesting.
It is.
A lot of people think it's just by election and whoever wins the major vote. No. So anyway.
But if you went by what was actually done on this election, Trump won the electoral and the popular vote both. It's
crazy.
It's crazy, and we could get lost on that. So I'm going to bring in our other host. Who is it? Drum roll. It's Mr. Mark David, the creator of this network, the visionary, the one who puts it all together, the one who gets the intros together, the one who gets us talking about the Constitution, the one who gets us talking on the compass of cram. Man, he is all over the place, and he's ready to go today. So.
What's up?
Hey.
Okay. Now, Sherry, so humbly saying I don't do nearly as much as anybody else. Did you see all this? I'm telling you, this is Sherry's video series list. Okay. All those blues are different actual videos. The red is just the title of the series. No, she didn't do anything. No. Oh my gosh, this took me like a month to put. No, it didn't actually. Didn't take me very long. It took Sherry more like a month to put the list together. But oh my gosh, this girl, and that's just the least of it. Sherry has a brand new series that's coming out real soon that everybody that knows everybody is going to want to watch this video series. Can I play for you her little promo intro here for you?
Sure.
Yeah, here. This is Sherry Flannigan's new series she's coming out with.
I love that music.
Didn't he do a wonderful job on that?
I love it.
Amazing. No pressure, Mark. Okay, no pressure. No pressure.
There's no pressure there. I have found my
study.
newest
Just a Bible study. 45 minutes on the first verse and a half. Just a little Bible study.
We're going to have to get an intro done for walking. That's what we're going to have to do.
Yeah, I know. And I actually said that a while back and never put it on my list. And so now it goes on the list. Here, let me write it down. And I think about it quite often, and I'm real sorry. You're the only one that doesn't have an intro.
I know.
When the little video series has intros and the whole show doesn't. Something wrong there. I'm telling you.
Well, it's not, ultimately I could get get the same thing you're doing and learn and try to put one together, but
I'll do it for you. You want to know the craziest thing? Now, you guys have seen pretty basically most of my intro videos that I've done and other videos and promos and things like that. And it's my newest calling that I absolutely love doing. But let's just say, take this Hebrews one that I just did for Sherry yesterday. When I bring up my video maker software, I don't have a clue on the planet what I'm going to do. As God is my witness, I don't have a clue. I don't even see it ahead of time. I go into the different places in my video maker, and there's all kinds of different templates and things like that. And I start playing, and usually within seconds, I'm finding something that, oh my gosh, this will work. Like what you saw in the Bible where it says Hebrews, and it's kind of scrolling around that page. That's this Bible right here. That's my Bible. I actually took my webcam, held it over, and did that little video of it, and then brought up, anyway. But that's why I say it is 100% the Lord putting these things together, because even as I'm putting them together, I have no idea that I'm doing this. They just come together.
Well, you're good. You're good at it. It's
amazing. They blow me away.
Muy excelente.
Blow me away. But anyway, that one yesterday, I'll bet you I played it 30 times yesterday. I'm playing it. I brought Adina in and said, "Look at this," and I'm playing it, and it's like, this is amazing. This is awesome, man. And it's amazing, and the music just pops up.
Where do you find them? Well, that's a whole nother conversation for off the show. But where do you find them?
It just comes to me. I go looking and try to find what I can, and there it is, and there it is.
Sandy, he has a special connection. You know that, right?
One way.
But what you have on that is absolutely perfect for the book of Hebrews, because the writer quotes over 40 quotes from the Tanakh to back what he says. The temple service is in there. The book of Hebrews, 1st and 2nd Peter, and there's another one I can't remember off the top of my head, were all written to Hebrews. They were written to people who knew the Tanakh, who knew the temple service and the culture. And what he put on there, I'm going like, that's absolutely perfect for,
Yeah.
Well, speaking,
wonderful.
I'm telling you,
it's good. But speaking of great intros, there's something happening this weekend. In 3 days
really?
Yeah, there is. There is something. It's a conference, and it is. Everybody needs to tune in, because it's going to take the pulse of what's happening in this day and hour with yesterday. So let's see a little bit about it.
Could it be this? The Messianic Lamb Video Network presents Keeping Focus in Distracting Times #7. This coming Sunday, December 6th, will be our very special Hanukkah edition. We will be comparing the distractions in the day of the Maccabees to the distractions found in the present day. Visit the New Lamb Network website at messianicslamnetwork.com to find start times in your time zone and the speakers. The Messianic Lamb Video Network presents Keeping Focus in Distracting Times number 7, Special Hanukkah Edition, December 6th, 2020.
I love how you took the number 7 and had it light in the menorah. I went, oh my goodness.
I love it.
It's so
I'm
cool.
telling you, it's so good. It's so good.
I love it.
Anyway,
I love it. I do. I love it. I just love it. And once again, as God is my witness, I have no idea what I'm going to do when I start putting those together. The Lord just puts it together.
Amen.
As God is my witness.
Well, they're good.
It gives me goosebumps just thinking about it sometimes because I got creativity, but gosh, not that.
But it's a good creative outlet. It's always good to have a creative outlet too.
Oh, big time.
You're going to have to teach me. You're going to have, that's all I can say is you're going to have to teach me some things. So,
But isn't that what it's all about? Is it that he does it through us? And when
Exactly.
he does it, we know I didn't do that. I mean, I do that on all those teachings. I'm like,
Yeah.
what did I just say? You know,
Yeah.
where did that come from? What do you know?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that's not there for me. Usually that doesn't work. There's things I've taught that it's like, it just comes from the Lord, but not like you guys do. You guys are amazing. I understand Joe has a lot from the Lord today.
She does. But before we get to that, I wanted to ask you guys, or just give you guys some really important, fascinating, I don't know that we could survive without knowing this.
Okay.
It's our news attack. And I am being sarcastic, by the way. Alexa developers app. They have a developed app to translate the cat's meow. An app that aims to translate your cat's meow has been developed, or raccoon's meow, has been developed by a former Amazon Alexa engineer, Meow Talk.
Okay.
Records
Are you telling me there is a meow language now?
Okay.
You didn't let me finish my little story.
Finish it, but I'm going to trump you. Go ahead.
Meow Talk records the sound and then attempts to identify the meaning. The cat's owner also helps to label the translation, creating a database for the AI software to learn. Currently, there are only 13 phrases in the app's vocabulary, including feed me, I'm angry, leave me alone. Research suggests, unlike their human servants, cats do not share a language. Each cat's meow is unique and tailored to its owner, with some more vocal than others. So instead of generic database for cat sounds, the app's translation differs with each individual profile, and you can get that app free on both Google Play and Apple's App Store. Yeah.
Are you ready to be trumped?
Trump me.
Okay. When Adina and I eat lunch every day together, we always find documentaries on either Hulu or Netflix. Netflix has the best documentaries, by the way. It's all there is to it. And we found a brand new one yesterday we thought we'd try out. And this is Netflix. I highly recommend this. This is put this on the top of your search list of things to go search out and watch as soon as possible. It's called Connected. It is a documentary on Netflix. It's a Netflix documentary, however you want to put it. And it's connected, and it is how we're all connected. Okay. Now, let me, and I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible, but this is just going to freak you out. But first of all, the first little segment they did in the show is they found this guy that goes into the forest up in the Northeast, and he has these birds that he knows for a fact are not just United States birds, and they put this little electronic backpack on these birds, and they strap them on, and they're GPS, so they can follow these birds and see what they do during different seasons. And the birds go all the way from like Delaware to South America every year and back again. And they have, over the past 20 years they've been doing this, have determined that they can figure out when hurricanes are going to be here, because the birds only go at a specific time so that when they go down there, they don't get caught up in the hurricanes. Okay, that's pretty cool. But the next segment of this is AI facial recognition, and the way that they develop it, and it's a developing process, by the way, is on pigs. Because pigs have a very similar facial and eye representations as humans do. And you watch this, it's going to freak you out. But they literally can tell the expression. You were talking about expressions of cats. Forget all that stuff. Cats, we don't care about cats. But pigs, but I had to throw that in there. You know I don't. You know I don't believe that. But pigs, they literally can tell what mood they're in and all this kind of stuff. But that only leads into the next segment of the show, where they literally are doing all of this AI facial recognition research, and it is an advancing process that they're using in practically every industry on this planet. Mm-hmm. And it will show you what they're doing, how they're doing it, and I'm sitting there going, well, so show us how they're doing it with people wearing masks. That's the updated thing, you know, but that apparently this was all done before COVID. But anyway, I highly suggest this. That's the overall view of this. It is worth watching this, at least the first show. Well, that's the only one we've seen. So go ahead, Sam.
I was going to say, with the masks, John said at the beginning they were training their AI to recognize your gait and everything else with a mask on, so that they could still identify you.
That's called the deep fake. You remember those videos where you can, I can't remember what they're called. They have them like during Christmas and Valentine's and everything, where they're dancing elves and you can put your head in there and you see the.
Oh yeah.
Okay, they now have it to where they know the movement, like you're talking about the pigs. They started with the pigs to learn the movement of your faces. They've done facial recognition on us for many moons.
Oh yeah.
And just Google up deep fake.
Yeah.
And you'll see all this information. They've been doing this since the 1990s. Sure. In fact, even before then. But it came out during that time on the computers.
Well, Connected is the Netflix thing, and
thank you.
So I mean, what's the possibilities of you mentioning this about cats? And we just watched this yesterday. I thought while I was watching, I thought, man, I got to bring this up on next chapter, and I totally forgot until you said that. So thank you for reminding me.
Well, I have no problem at all with my cats talking to me. I mean, you look at them and their ears are back. I call them their bat ears. That means leave me alone. Yeah. If their ears are back and their tail is switching, that's really leave me alone, because I'm going to claw your eyes out. You know, if they're laying there like this asleep, like, oh, I'm really chilled out. You know, I have no problem. They sit there and look at their bowl and look at you. And they come up in your table and knock something off. They're like, feed me, I'm hungry.
Yeah. I do have something on cats' language. I was told that that meows and things are for the owners, the different kinds, but growls and things are cat to cat.
And they make a little chirping noise too to their owners. That's an affectionate.
Yep.
It's kind of a little chirping noise. They'll go like that.
See, we know cat language already. We should get paid millions.
And they made all that other stuff up because they don't want us to be able to talk to our cats.
And next week, our study will be on cat language.
No, it won't. Sherry, I have one question for you.
Uh-oh.
Can you read Bob as well as you read your cats?
Yeah, actually, I can. Actually, it's just like, He's so sweet. He walks out, he kisses me in the morning, he says good morning, and then he wants to be left alone for a little bit. He doesn't even want to eat breakfast for about an hour after he gets up. You know,
I'll trump that for you. Adina and I wave at each other when we get up. We do. We don't even want to say words. Neither one of us. When we get up, we're not ready to talk or nothing. So as we pass in the hall or something, well,
y'all are the blessed couple. Let me tell you how this works out. You have two people in the morning. You have those that spring out of bed before the sun comes up and they clean their whole house and they have a 6-course meal for breakfast. Then you have those who get up about 10 or 11, feel their way down the hall and try to figure out how to make coffee. And they're so glad that somebody gave them during Hanukkah an automatic coffee thing so that it's already done when they get there. And they don't want to hear. Literally, my grandmother would get up, and because I lived with her for a while, and she said, "You do not speak to me before 10 o'clock," and she meant it. She was very serious. So
there's something
those two kind of people is one. A lot of times is married to the different, so they're opposites. So because God has a sense of humor and he wants to see how we work it out.
Okay.
I'm so blessed that Bob and I, we used to be kind of the same, but now I've kind of gotten off, but he'll be up till 4 or 5 in the morning because that's his regular work schedule. And then
I just, that's the only time I get to watch my shows.
Y'all don't want to be at my house then.
Well, marriage is fun. It really is. It's when you learn with those close relationships how to get along, then it helps you when you go out to get along with other people.
Well, I can tell you this. John and I had this conversation yesterday because I get up and I'm ready. I got to go. I got to get things accomplished. I got to do it. John's like, don't look. John doesn't even look at me. He walks like this with his head to the ground and walks straight, does the thing. He doesn't want you to talk to him. Now, of course, it's not till 10. He gets up early. But yesterday, we got a call. It was like 6:25 a.m., something like that. And it was his work. And they said, we need you to, it was snowing and sleeting. They said, we need you to drive an hour away. There's a major crash. We need you to go do a scene investigation. And he was so sweet and so nice and all that. I said, this is what I said as he was walking. I said, if you can do it for him, you can do it for me.
and Sherry, we're safe. Because they know we'll love them warts and all. We just love each other. And love each other.
Some of us don't do 6-course meals. Okay, some of us do a nice meal. I make a Spanish tortilla española. It's like an omelet. I make the turkey bacon on the side and the toast and the coffee. Well, we have a dandy blend instead of coffee. And then I go in the bedroom to wake him up, and he's like, arr. I said, oh, the bear is grumbling. I'm going to go eat. It's nice and warm. Bye. I go eat.
Sometimes I have to tell Bob, says, quit growling like a bar. Quit it. Stop being a bar. So he looks at me, he rolls those eyes. It's so funny.
Now that everybody's got to know our way of habits. All right. Well, you know what time it is? It's time for news. Yeah, it's time for the news. And so we're going to let everybody look for the news. And I'm saying it again, one more time, the news. Four Corners News. Yeah, stay tuned.
Well, I was looking around, surfing the web, so to speak. And the title of this topic that we're going to talk about is What's Happening to Our Children and Youth Today is the topic. And I went to naturalnews.com. And I'm going to put this, I'm going to copy this and I'm going to put this in the chat because you need to go see this. This is just real interesting. I even watched the video of this doll. And I think I sent it to you, Sandy, as well. There's a doll out there. It's been out there for a little while. And the title of this article is called Brainwashing the Young. Crybaby's doll allowing children to vaccinate their dolls, causing measles-looking red dots on their face to vanish. Now, what this doll does, this is just part of the topic that we're going to talk about, is this doll, she all of a sudden gets these little red splotches on her little face and body, and it's so cute. And the next thing you know, the little girl comes with her little inoculation and pulls the little bottom of the dolly's pants in the video. You can YouTube this doll and see the commercial. And she goes to the little spot that she's supposed to and injects the doll. Oh, guess what? The doll is better. So what they're doing is they're indoctrinating our children into accepting vaccinations, where a lot of people today are saying no vax. Okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The other thing that I was looking at that is interesting is in 1965 is when they created Head Start. I'm pretty sure everybody knows what Head Start is. It's the comprehensive child development services for 32 million children, services that foster children growth in social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development, and monitor their progress in these areas to ensure that they are well prepared for kindergarten. Well, it's not just being well prepared for kindergarten, because they are also teaching our children some things that they don't need to know in some of these Head Starts. You have also going on today in California, it's still going on. In some states, they've kind of stopped doing it. It is, and I'm trying to come to it, where they have the social distancing issue, where they now have the virtual schooling. Okay. So you have school at home, right? It's virtual schooling, people. It's not homeschooling. Just want to clarify that. So they are telling the parents to sign a waiver. Now, some states have stopped this and said, no. You have to sign a waiver that says that you are not going to go and listen in to what your child's being taught. Okay. Now, some school districts, like in Tennessee, said, okay, well, we're gonna change this waiver a little bit to where you can listen in to what your child's being taught as long as the teacher says it's okay, because we don't want you to hear anything confidential. Okay, well, why is my child listening to stuff you're telling them confidential stuff? Is it really confidential stuff, or are they brainwashing our children? Well, you have the situation with that Tennessee school. What was interesting was, and I'm trying to read my notes here, is that if you got caught as a parent not abiding by this rule, that the kids would be removed from the virtual schooling room. Well, this lady asked, what's the virtual schooling room? Is it my home? Is it the child's room? Are you going to remove my child? There's a little loophole on that. We also have brainwashing the children. And yes, I'm calling it brainwashing because there's these words that have been thrown around, and they've been thrown around even with the media today and through social media, because our youth, a lot of our youth, young children, even age 10 and above, are on Facebook, TikTok, tweet, whatever that's called, Instagram, hoo-ha, whatever. There's so many social medias out there. You can make a list, okay? And these kids are out there watching these social medias. And here's some of the words that are being used, or phrases that are being used, and these children are vomiting this out. You have the new normal. We're all in this together. Stay home, stay safe. 6 feet away. Cover your face. The cancel culture we've heard. We have essential personnel, or essential people. Who are these essential people? Okay. You have flatten the curve, BLM, PPE, wash your hands, socialization, ethics studies are now coming into the schools in California, to where in high school they're saying that you cannot graduate high school until you have ethics studies. Well, the ethics studies that they are bringing forth also are showing our youth, now I'm talking about our youth here too, that we need to stand up for those poor people. We need to be more loving and kind. They are teaching our children propaganda. They are teaching our children things that should not be taught. They have removed things from the schools, like some of the schools no longer are letting it be required reading of like 1984 or the Animal Farm or okay, what is it? Tom Sawyer, Huckleberry Finn, and all those, because those are really mean books. They're really mean books, and they shouldn't be there because they're very racist books. That's another thing that a white, and when they do this ethics study in California, they are teaching these kids, and in this article that I read, they're teaching these kids to, they have to do a project. And in this project, all the white children are treated really poorly because you have white privilege. So you're going to be treated poorly. Where the colored kids and the ethnic kids are not treated better. They're still treated, are taught about how terrible they have it because of their past and everything. So we have all of this garbage going in, and our kids are in on Zoom, on Facebook, on social media, and even the little ones up to 4 years of age are on these computers, Zoom computers, being taught, and the parents are told you're not to be involved in this. Why? Why can't a parent listen in? Why can't a parent be watching what their child's doing? Why is it that you are so secretive? What is it that's underlying all this? There's so much more out there about this that we could go on and on. But here's the question: why? And we better stand up, and we better take our kids back, because in the scripture it says to train up a child in the way they should go. Okay. And in that scripture, it doesn't say the school is to train up the child. It doesn't say the community is to train up the child. It says you are to train up that child. You are the parent that God has given that child to. God blessed you with that kid, not the school, not the state, not the country, not the government, you. And you're liable for that child and their education. So my opinion is, I think it's time to cut back on all of this social media stuff, and even take your kid back and start learning what they are, stand up. Because guess what? This woman in Tennessee and those in Tennessee stood up and said, no, we want to know what our children are being taught. And some of them have even removed their children from the school system when they found some of the things that the teachers are bringing up. And guys, we can go on and on with this. I can go on and on, but I would love to hear what you found, and, help is all I can say, because we need to help one another with this. We really do. We need to help one another with this. It really is a thing. We need to take our children back. And
I agree. And my question was, did we ever have a resolution to the Tennessee lady who said, what is the virtual classroom? I'd like to know if they ever answered that, or if they did answer it to the effect that some school districts or counties have said that it's up to the teacher to decide if you can come in, because it is, and I thought this was funny, confidential. Why is my 5-year-old listening to confidential stuff? That's not what I mean. I mean, what are they defining as? Because ultimately they'd like to remove the children.
There's
from the
nothing.
home.
If you go into a classroom, what is there for confidential? What confidential stuff? ABC 1, 2, 3.
But what my point is it's the whole thing is that the goal is to remove the children from your home. Yeah. And that's what I was going at. But I find we think this is horrible now, and it is horrible. But I will say the generation that is now 18 to 26, 30 years old right now, as they went through the school, most of that generation has been taught this, and that is why They do not like God. They are very liberal. They are not liberal. They're leftist. They are very socialist, et cetera, because they've been, and white people are garbage. If you have white skin, you are trash. And I'll say this, even in our own community, even with my own family, I've seen one of the kids, I'm not counting Jonathan. I guess it would be two if you count Jonathan, but Jonathan's the oldest of the grandchildren. But there's only one that came out of that without being leftist. The rest are. And I see that in our congregation. Kids that have been raised, once they got so far in high school, they stopped attending, and all of a sudden afterwards, they're leftist, and they spew this indoctrination out, and they don't see any other alternative. And that's the one thing about what's happening with this socialist communistic side that's going on with adults as well, is that if you don't agree with them, you're worthy of being off the planet. They don't want, it's not like us. We'll listen to your conversation, though we may disagree. There's no tolerance. And again, one good thing that may have happened from everything that's going on is people are becoming aware that the school is corrupt, and maybe removing them, because we've been saying this, we understood this, but obviously people didn't get it until they're being faced with it right in front of them. And I wish everybody that's a person of faith would pull their children from the public school system, because they are brainwashing your children. They are the ones that raise your children. Think about it. Who spends the most time every day with your kid? It's not you. So who's the one that has the influence? It's the government school system. I know. I'm the host. I need to be quiet. Sherry, what do you have to say?
Well, you can counter that with your teachings at home. And if you know that they're going into that environment, then you need to talk with your child and say, this is the truth. I really they did a research one time. They went into a university and do you believe in socialism? Oh, yes. Do you think everybody ought to be treated? Oh, yes. Da, 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 da. Well, they said, okay, well, now what's your GPA? Well, my GPA is an A. Well, there's this guy over here, and, they asked him, do they believe in white privilege too, I think. And he's not, white, and he's, he got a D. So we're going to take your A and take part of your A and make you a C and him a C, and then everybody's equal. Everybody's equal, and they're saying, do you want? Well, no. Well, he may not have studied. Like, I studied really hard to get that A, and they're going like, but don't you think everybody ought to be equal? Don't you? And it really made the students start thinking, because see, it's so easy to take somebody else's money or something that doesn't cost you anything. And the same thing was done in a open forum. The Indian man that talks to people, and he's had some movies out stuff. This guy stood up. He was talking about white privilege and da 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 da. He said, I know exactly where you're going. He said, I tell you what you do. Tomorrow you go down to the registrar and you tell the registrar that you want to give your education and let your parents pay for somebody else to go here. And then you just go on out there and learn how to pick peaches or something and give that underprivileged person your space in this college or in this university. Well, no, I have to stay here so I can get an education and I can help them. He said, oh, no, you help them now. You give them your education and you go out and pick peaches. And then he was saying, he said, it's so easy when it costs somebody else something. But when it comes down to you, you really do not believe in that. The fallacy of the whole thing is to think we all have the same opportunities here. people can take advantage of the opportunities or not take advantage of the opportunities. But try to have the same outcome from everybody is the fallacy. There are some people who work harder and some people don't. And you don't punish the people who worked harder so that they would have a better outcome. And another thing about these virtual things, I'm going to switch gears here. They had a Baltimore, I don't know if people heard about it, but there was a little boy in Baltimore that was wanting to be an Eagle Scout. And to be an Eagle Scout, he had to learn how to shoot a BB gun. Well, he had a BB gun stored in a gun rack, and he had a airsoft rifle, I think it was, stored in a gun rack. His mother was retired military, knew exactly how to handle guns and all this. And the little boy is on his TV and the rack is behind him. The teacher called the cops to him. The cops knocked on the door and said, "We're here to search for guns. Where are our constitutional amendment rights on that?" And she said she was absolutely floored. And then they were kind of aggravated because they're going, it's a BB gun and it's an airsoft rifle. But the fact is they were spying on the kid to see what he had in his room. And there was another kid that on one of these computers that they gave everybody, this was a few years ago, he would take a big bag of Skittles and he would put all these Skittles in a baggie and take them to school and sell them for less than they sold at the candy counter. And he was making a profit and saving his money. He was a little entrepreneur. Well, the teachers on the computer that he brought home, when he wasn't even online, were spying into his room. Mm-hmm. And when he went to school, they had the cops there waiting for him to search his backpack and stuff. And they found out it was Skittles. And then they had another girl that the parents found out it was in her bedroom and the teachers were watching her undress. So that, I mean, that they had it on, and the remarks that were made, and I think they were chatting or something. I don't know how they knew this, but I think it was like chatting. They were saying, this is better than a pornographic movie. They were watching the girl undress in the privacy of her bedroom, and they got a hold of all those records. But so you really have to watch what's going on with not only that, but protect their privacy, and see what they're learning. I mean, it's horrible what's going on now. And see, they're after the children. It's just like what Joe put up here, what Lennon said, give me just one generation of youth and I'll transform the whole world. We're not going to let them have our children. We are they cannot. Our children belong to the Most High God, and they're not going the way of Balaam and Molech and all these other false gods. We teach them the right way to live and come against this mindset, and I'll tell you this, my little grandson, Trey, when he was well, maybe I'm not ought to tell that. I'll tell y'all later, but he had an incident in his childcare that it took us a while to figure out what the teacher was saying to him. And so even in daycare, you have to pay attention to what your child is saying.
That's right.
So it's not just the schools. It's everywhere. But it's just so sad because there's only one race, and that's the human race, period.
That's exactly right.
Conversation.
Right.
And we just, we have different skin colors, pigmentations because of where we live and because of the food we have eaten over time. And you'll find people that are blue-eyed and light complected and all that. Scandinavian countries, blue-eyed people have a less prone to have snow blindness, where they have a lot of snow, than somebody who has dark brown eyes. So, I mean, there's things that characteristics and things we all have. And it's sad. I don't think we had a systemic racial problem until somebody started stirring stuff up and telling there's a system. Everything has to do with race. That's hogwash, horse manure. And that's the nicest way I can say that. I've never been prejudiced against people. And I know a lot who hadn't, and they automatically, oh, you're from the South, you're prejudiced. I saw more prejudice up north than I ever saw in the South.
It's just, yeah, it's all, that's true. Hey, Mark, before we go to our main segment, did you want to chime in real quick?
Well, no, we're all preaching to the choir. That's all there is to it. It's the whole idea. It comes from paying attention and being involved. That's the number one word, is being involved with our children from the day they're born until they're dead. That's all there is to it. We just have to be involved. If you're involved with your children, you'll know what's going on, and they'll know you know what's going on. And it's not any different than that. That's bottom line. It's what everybody's been saying, and there's nothing more to add to that at all. So,
well, the one thing that we need to be with our ears open for is, here's a couple of wordings that I just want to throw out, is social justice organizers or organization. If you hear that, have some bells on. The other one is called agents of change. These are the things that they're bringing forth to these kids. And as for what Sherry was saying with the videos that were happening with the schools, I want people to understand, because when I was homeschooling, the Homeschool Legal Defense told us never to let the government into your home, because when you let the government into your home, you have lost your freedom in your own home. So when you have a school-owned property in your home, you have let the government in your home. When you brought forth the teacher to come on Zoom to teach your child, you have opened the door and let the government into your home, and you don't even realize it. They have done this in a very sneaky way, and this is so they can get to know what's going on in the background of your home. Okay? So we need to step up, and we need to start listening to what the words that are coming out of our children, because our children, the little ones especially, are like little parrots, and they're parroting out what they are being taught.
It's true.
Can I make one quick comment too? We found this. It won't take but just a second, but this happened years ago at a assembly we were going to. They stressed over what anybody said on the BEMA. If they wanted to say to house or whatever, but they took any warm body they could get a hold of to go back and teach their children. And I made the comment, I said, adults can assess things. You had people back there that didn't even believe that Yeshua is the Messiah and he is God, teaching the children. So don't tell me how you stress over what's said on the BEMA. You need to be watching your children and what they are being taught there, because they don't really able to assess like we can. And so that was an issue that I had at that particular assembly. I said, you need to find out what's being taught back there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We're going to go into our main segment right now, but it really is a continuing conversation, but we're going to let Joe take us there. So I'm learning. I mean, there's so much that people need to hear that we're getting from each of you. So like I said, this is the continuing conversation, but Joe's going to take us there.
I'm going to play our intro to book it.
We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the streets of gold. We'll be dancing in the streets, dancing at his feet, dancing in the New Jerusalem. And we will sing Kadosh, Kadosh to the Lord of hosts, joining in the angels' choir.
You're muted.
I must have muted myself. Sorry. It's facing conflict, how to run your household and raise your children. And we've already been discussing this with the news article, because we need to step up on raising our kids. And there's so much going on. And when I decided to do this, this topic, I was remembering the time of being a young girl in junior high school in the late 1970s. And it was during the time of Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter had stated in the news that, at least this is what our teacher said, and she was a New Ager. She had all her New Age guru, Middle Eastern, kind of clothes and everything. And she sat there and looked at us and said, Jimmy Carter said that we need to, what is it called? Meditate on this and so on and so forth, because there was a satellite that was coming down. Okay. One of the old satellites was just going to come down into the ground. And so it was a fear tactic. Us kids were kind of like, oh no, the world's coming to an end because the satellite's coming down. I mean, as a young child, things like that, you blow it out of proportion. Well, she wanted us to sit on the ground and sit like with your feet crossed on top of each other and all this, and put your little fingers and do the home and the whole thing and meditate. Well, myself and two other young people there stood up. We were young Christian children, stood up and says, we cannot do that. That's not right. Well, she sat there and told us, you don't do this, you're going to get an F for the day in this class. Well, Joe was like, I'm not getting no F. So I went to the principal's office and I said, I need to call my mom. What's wrong? I need to call my mom. It's an emergency. Okay. So they had me call my mother on the phone. I explained to my mother what was happening in the schoolroom. My mother beelined it to the office and said, I am Joe's mom. I want to talk to the principal. I want my daughter to be there. And I want that teacher to be there within 1 hour. We're going to have a discussion. Well, ma'am, that might disrupt classes. She says you could put a substitute teacher in her position for a time. Because in junior high school, they switch classes and stuff. She says, because this has got to be spoken. My mother never messed around with our education, and especially with our education of Yahovah and his word. And so the principal said, okay, Miss Ritchie, we will do this. We sat down and discussed it. And she looked the teacher right in the face. She says, you are there to teach my child reading, writing, arithmetic. You are not there to teach my child how to be as a person, what to believe in, as in if there's a God or not. You just do your job. I'll do my job as a parent. And it should not be done again, because if it's done again, and she looked at the principal, she says, I will go to the Board of Education because I will not put up with this. This is what parents should be doing today. Parents today are not doing that anymore. Well, the school knows what they're talking about. So we have children today that are coming home and complaining, and saying, you don't know what you're talking about, Mom. Because we have it even inside the house where children are telling us how to raise them. And so you have disagreements that happen. People tell you that you're doing this wrong or that wrong. You shouldn't be disciplining your child this way. You shouldn't be doing that. Well, let's go into the scriptures. Let's go to Proverbs 22:6. It says, start children off on the way they should go. And even when they are old, they will not turn from it. So from the beginning, we're supposed to be training our children up in the way they should go. We should be teaching them the scriptures. We should be teaching them how to pray. We should be teaching them how to praise. We should be teaching them about God's word. The world is not going to teach your children this. God gave your children for this. And we are so focused on what is going to offend someone today. And I'm saying in general, okay, in general, a lot of people are so worried about that. And we need to start dealing with people and telling them in a kind manner, but standing firm, that the way I train my child is the way I am going to train my child. If you don't like it, that's fine. I'm going to tell one last story, and then I'm going to bring all of y'all in. The last story is my mother did a daycare and took care of children. And one of the mothers did not like the fact that my mother sat the children down to read the Bible and teach them about the Bible. And she says, that's fine, but I want you to understand, when you brought this child into my home, I told you I will treat your child like I treat my children. I will take care of your children like I take care of my children. I will teach your children like I taught my children. And I explain to you what I teach my children, how I discipline my children, how I feed my children, what my children are supposed to do, because she even taught these children that she took care of chores. And this woman said, fine. And she took her child and left. 3 months later, she came back and she says, can my child come back? My child is not happy. My child likes learning about Jesus, even though I think Jesus is nothing. And my mother says, it's fine. Come on in. My mother, through her daycare, was showing people how she raised up her children. And if they disagreed, fine, disagree with me. That's fine. But I'm going to do it in a very loving, kind manner. But also, I'm going to protect my children like a mama bear. You can bring everybody in, Mark. Sandy.
Here's my question, which I think a lot of people probably are asking, because this is good, but right now we do have the invasion into our home, and the kids are telling us everything they've heard and from school and saying this is the way you should raise me, or even from the kids around them. I know Jonathan wasn't home, he was homeschooled most of the time, but at church he was with people that would say, other kids, peers that would say, I can't believe your parents check who your friends are. I can't believe your parents won't let you. So there was influence coming from that direction too. So some conflict did arise for a time, but there's such conflict now because the government has been allowed into the home. How do we face off with those forces that would try to tell us how we should raise our children, how our kids should be schooled? I think one of the things we have to say is, with just all these wonderful testimonies that Sherry's given, that Mark and Joe has given, you got to do your research, and you've got to be ready for the battle ahead of time, I think. And
Exactly.
Mark said it exactly right. Be involved. Be involved.
But you did say something, Sherry, that if they go to public, you didn't say this, but you said when they get home from school to be sure to train them. That doesn't work anymore, because it's the person that spends the most time with your kids that has the loudest voice in their lives. And
one of the things that impressed me is that they had, I think it was Seventh-day Adventist. It was some denomination that was in communist Russia. And they came over, someone was there, like some of the people were visiting and stuff with them. And they were finding out their children believed in God. They knew all this. And they were saying, how are you dealing with living in this society? And they said, every night when they come back from the communist schools, we sit down with them and say, what did you learn? What were you taught? And they unwind their brain.
that's good.
And they say, this is what this is. That was one thing. And another thing too, the lady that led me to the Lord, Betty, she was never shy about God. And the Lord sent her to university. I mean, she got was in criminal law and all this stuff, but, anyway, and late in life, he sent her to university, college. And she said, I thought he sent me there, to get an education. She said, but I'm running up against all kinds of stuff. And she said, one teacher said something in class. She said, I just stood up in the class and said, I know better than that. I'm old. I've lived my life. And why are you corrupting these young minds? I mean, she'd get them. She publicly called them out. She got called into the dean's office because she'd take a test and she'd write the answer down, and then she'd do an arrow and she'd have in the margin, this is the answer you want to hear, but I know better. And would underline. She got called into the dean's. You need to quit writing in your margin, Miss Byer. She said, well, I do know better, and you know better too. And she would tell the kids. So she was being a light to those kids. They were laughing, but I guarantee you they never forgot her. And one really funny thing that happened to her, she said, she was in an anthropology class, and she's going like, this is horrible. It's horrible. She said, I'm going to fail. I'm going to, lose my standing. I said, you won't fail. She said, I said, you'll get a C. She said, what? I said, you will not get an F because you will retake the class. If you get a D, you might retake the class. I said, you will get a C She got a C minus. She said, you were exactly right. I said, they do not want you back in there. And then she said, I'm going to take an art class. It'll be easy. And I snickered. I thought, she said, what? And I said, just wait and see. I think God's setting you up. She said, you were right. You were right. They were showing these beautiful pictures from the Louvre. And they were just beautiful. And then she said, they started putting pictures up. And she's like, my 3-year-old grandchild could draw stick people like that. And so she said, who does the teacher call on? What do you think of this, Miss Byer? And she thought, why did he pick me out of all these people here? And she said, I told him what I thought. My 3-year-old grandchild can draw better than that. Those little stick people and bug eyes and stuff. And he bowed himself up and he said, you have to develop a taste for this kind of art, Miss Byer, like she was some worm or something. She said, I looked right at him. I said, you know what? You're exactly right. God gives us a natural inclination to the things that are beautiful. And you really do have to teach yourself to like something that's ugly. So then they asked, I think it was Van Gogh or something. So they said, what do you think he was thinking here? And she says, I don't even know what that crazy man was thinking to get into his nutty brain. Who cares? So,
I think that was probably Goya.
Fail art. I'm going. I said, no, you're not. You're not going to fail art. Mm-hmm. She said, but he quit calling on her in class. But I mean, that's how we can be a light a lot of times. And she said, she talked to some of the teachers and she said, a couple of them, she said, I knew that was going to be their last call from the Lord. And if they didn't turn, he was going to deal with them. So there are times when we're light where we're planted. She did graduate. She did get her degrees and stuff. Praise the Lord. And he got her through, and she was the first one in her family to get a degree like that, even though she did it when she was older. She's an extremely intelligent woman, but just didn't have the chance for an education when she was younger. But I said, I told you God put you there. I said, he set you up, didn't he? She said, I can't believe it. I can't believe the stuff they're saying. They're corrupting these young minds. She said, and then she said there was these women that were, oh, what do you think of this? And she said, she looked at them. She said, I think of the scripture that says, silly women forever studying and never coming to the knowledge of the truth. She upset them folks. I mean, she's like, I'm sitting here by God and I'm going to take care of this.
Sandy, the answer is always in the scriptures, always in the scriptures, and especially as believers, what we need to start doing. And a lot of parents haven't been doing lately because they thought that the school system, they were being duped, first of all, that the school system was helping them and everything. And plus Dr. Spock, the book Dr. Spock, which was a crazy book, in Ephesians 6. And I know I've said this to where everybody's like, really, Joe, you're going to say it again? Yes, I'm going to say it again because it's his word. It says, finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. And we need to remember that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. We need, as parents, to be wearing that armor and protecting our children and training them and teaching them how to put that armor on as well by using the scriptures. And a lot of parents today have gotten, and I did it early in my years, lazy in teaching their children in the way that they should teach their children to go. They have gotten lazy while the teacher's doing it. They've got homework. They'll go do their homework, and they've left their children there to do that. And people are sitting there looking at you when you are either a homeschooler or a believer and a parent that's disciplining your children and teaching them and taking them to Shabbat, or they're doing the feasts and everything. And they're saying, well, why are you doing that? That's the Old Testament. We're teaching our children because we want them to be grounded. We're teaching them the foundations, and we need to bring forth and stand strong on our convictions of how we're training our children up, but doing it in a loving and kind manner. and not sitting there pointing our finger saying you're doing it wrong. Because you know what? You don't know their circumstances. You don't know their whole lifestyle, why they're in the circumstance they are, like a single mother or whatever, and why she's dealing with a child that's being rebellious. Because guess what? Sometimes a child that's rebellious, it's not because they've not been trained up. It's because they've chosen to be rebellious.
And that happens.
Mark, before I chime in, is there something you want to say?
Well, it's just a classic. Always, all of this stuff is classic cases of us living in one world and having to live physically in another world. We're not of this world. We're of a different world. We're of a whole different form of government. It's interesting contemplating the Constitution. Every show, we bring up the fact that the Constitution is a form that we use to live by, living in the United States, but the Word of God is also a constitution. There's the Constitution that we have with God, the covenant that we have with God, in that we live in by that. And when we're living in the world, which we basically have to do, and especially with children, thank God all mine are gone. That you're going to have to be in that situation of dealing with the world, whether or not, if you're homeschooling and trying, like my daughter homeschools, but she's also part of huge homeschooling groups. She's extremely blessed to be able to separate that world from the world out there. Yet we all have to live in this world, and those children have to come in contact with the world outside that world that we live in. And in a lot of the stuff that you guys have been saying, there have always been bullies, and there will always be bullies. And one of the things that I don't think people put together or they process is that when people that are living in the world are a part of that system can make bullies out of them. It's the system that makes those bullies in a lot of ways, because if you're going to have to answer to somebody, you have to do things and say things sometimes that you don't want to have to do. So it makes you into a form of a bully. And so we have to recognize that if we're going to be a part of that, we're going to have to learn to be able to deal with bullies on a spiritual basis. That's what I'm hearing based on a lot of the things that you guys are saying here. I mean, I'm really not so much a part of that. My conflict is extremely limited because I pick and choose who I'm in contact with and what I allow into my world and what I allow me to step into when I step out of my house. And so that has a lot to do with it. If you're in control of the world outside of your house, then you have a whole lot better ability to make things happen the way that you want to. If you're not in control of that world that you're stepping into when you go out there, you got to be ready to handle it. And most people are not ready to handle it. We don't live fully in contact with the godly world. We don't live fully in contact with this world. And that's there's your conflict. And to me, that's what I'm saying. That's why I understand it. We met a Messianic couple on Thanksgiving. It's a couple. It's a man and woman, and they're 66 and 68. And he is just retired in November, 42 years of teaching history in the school system. And you want to talk to somebody that can give you some straight out background of what is really happening right now and has for the past 42 years, not only in the school system, but in the world that involves that system and the world out there. He's the one to talk to. I really wish we had him on the show today, because he would have been somebody to let talk for a while based on all the things that are being said. As a matter of fact, I can always invite him if we're talking about stuff like this. He'd be glad to come on and talk to us. I'd love to have him come in and share some of these things, because I think it applies. I think it goes right along with what we're talking about.
I agree. That would be great. I want everybody to understand that because our topic was how you face conflict in the home, especially from outside sources, I think is where sort of this is coming from, although it can be within the home too. And I want you to understand that the word is powerful, and that is true. That is 100% true. But if you also become aware over the battles that have already been fought, over the right that you have to raise your children in your home, you can use those things when the forces try to come against you. For instance, States versus Levinson, 1950, Illinois pursued a truancy case against Marjorie Levinson, who was a Seventh-day Adventist who opted to homeschool her daughter. The court ruled that homeschooling arrangement could be considered a private school under Illinois law. In Texas, what you say if somebody tries to come in is homeschool is private school, and private school is not regulated under the state constitution. So you get it. State versus Massa, 67, June. The Superior Court's verdict in State versus Massa stated that parents in New Jersey could homeschool their children. And then you have Wisconsin versus Yoder. 3 Amish kids' fathers, following the dictates of culture, took their kids out after 8th grade. The U.S. Supreme Court determined in 72 of May that an exception to compulsory school attendance would be made for Amish children to uphold their religious freedom. And I'm saying these sorts of things because we battle in prayer. We battle with the word. We battle by standing and not giving in, but also know your history. That's why we have the show on the Constitution. Oh my goodness. I'm not saying one of the best shows, because they're all great, but one of the most informative educational shows that we have on the Messianic Lamb Video Network is that show, which should be a must for adults and children. We say, well, all our homeschool kids, no, adults need to listen to it too, because you will be educated. If we know our history, if we understand our Constitution, because we live in the United States of America, if we refuse to give in and stand and stop, and we know the history even in the court proceedings, then we'll be able to stand if forces try to come against us, or even the voices from our neighbors and things like that. Guys, I know our past time, but one of the biggest arguments you get is socialization. What about your kid? Your kids are socialized in church. They're socialized in the neighborhood. They're socialized in all sorts of places. And generally, homeschool kids are better socialized than the others because they spend time with groups besides just their peers. So anyway, know your stuff. Know your stuff, guys. If you know your stuff, then you will, as well as the word, you will be more easily able to stand in case somebody tries to come against you. And here's the next thing that we learned from the last segment. Do not let people into your home that should not be there. And that includes the government school system and everything else. Don't let them have a foot in the door. Anyway, this is a great show. Thank you so much, Joe, for bringing this out. And we could probably go on for hours. I would love to hear that guy. Be aware, people. Be aware of what's going on outside your door and to our children. And they are going to try to come into your home one way or another. Don't let them in. And as Bob said earlier, get rid of Alexa and all those like that, because they're in your home when you do that.
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that one too. You bet.
all these people, all these.
That. I thought, what kind of people wants a spy in their home? I mean,
Well, lots of people invited it.
You know what you need to do also is it's time to start back with the basic classic education of your children. I mean, you don't have to get rid of everything, but they don't need an iPhone. They don't need an iPad. You can have a computer. We lived with one computer in our house when we homeschooled, and with 3 kids. They all shared the computer. They all had to do their work on the computer that they needed to do, but the computer was there just as a help, not as the main focus of everything. Get your children outside. Get back to the basics.
Yeah. You know what else? I've told you this, Mark. Because this has gotten it. I don't know if you've looked at chat, probably not, but a lot of the things about the Confederate flag and the Civil War and things, I still would like to have those guys on maybe this show again and do the Civil War update. What happened. I would love to have those men come back on the show. They could have the whole show and re-educate, because sometimes you need to hear that stuff over and over again. So if we could get that to work, and we'll give them the whole show, because I remember the last show we did with them, it was not enough. It was not enough. They were so good and so interesting, because just as the Constitution isn't known, the history of of the Civil War and its background is not known.
I'll get a hold of them. I just made a note of it. Disclaimer on that, though, is if you're from the South, you have a whole different history than the one that the people in the North have put in the history books or have learned. And that's what I've learned having moved to North Carolina. Everybody has a different history than what I learned in Kansas. They all remember all those instances, and not one person has one positive thing to say about Abraham Lincoln. Not one person. And so I'm just saying, disclaimer before we do that, because I had to say it on the show, because I know these guys. You're going to hear stuff that you're going to say, no stinking way, but it's their history.
But isn't it? Don't we want the truth?
We do, but another disclaimer, and I put this on everything. The guy, if you bring a couple of guys on here to talk about that, they were not alive during that time. They only can say the things that they've heard other people say. So, there are stories that are passed down through the ages, but that also has to do with everything in history. Everything. I make that disclaimer in the Constitution is that the Constitution's a little bit different story, because those are documented factual things on that. When you're looking at history and man has written out history, you're subject to agendas and all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And especially if you're talking to somebody that is alive today, they can only truthfully say what they've been through in their lives themselves during the time they're alive. Anything else has just been passed down through the ages. And that is a disclaimer for everything. Sorry, I'm a realist.
No, that's true.
But you also have families that have letters and things like that. I don't
accept everything that comes into my ears. I don't. And that's including the coronavirus and all that kind of stuff. I don't accept everything that comes into my ears and into my eyes. Okay. Right. So, you got to understand those disclaimers. Go ahead, Carrie.
No, I was going to say, you also have family members that have diaries and letters and concrete things that they look at.
Hey,
so there is that aspect of it.
One of the most respected historians ever was what's the guy that names don't come to me anymore, but he lived during the time of the things that went Yeshua's time, and he wrote a lot of different books. Josephus. And Josephus's writings, who is one of the greatest historians of all time, has been disproven over and over and over again. So I have to be a realist on this.
You have to take a lot of things with a grain of salt. Mm-hmm. You have to take a lot of things that are given today with people like a grain of salt, because there's so much out there. I mean, I learned history in school about Spain, and my mother had to sit down with me and say, mm-mm.
Yeah. Well, watch Penn and Teller shows, watch Mythbusters, all those things, man. I mean, those are my favorite shows because they tell the truth. They bust those myths and those lies and stuff. It's BS.
Do your own research, guys.
Yeah. Anyway, we're done. We're sorry you asked, but I'll be glad to get hold of them. We just got to put a disclaimer out there before we do anything. And I'll talk to my friend about that was the history teacher.
All right.
He's
okay, everybody.
Teacher in middle school, by the way. That's why I think it's so relevant. Is he's a history teacher in middle school, and I get to talk to him a little bit. Sorry, I'm rambling on. I'm rambling.
That's good. Well, we're excited. Those are shows that are upcoming, so you don't want to miss those. I think it's very interesting that people hunger for the truth in their history because we have so much. We have so many lies. And that's why when we touch on something historical, that's why the Constitution show is so important. But even on this, you've got to know your history so you can live in today's world. So you can, and that's why the truth of history needs to be brought forth. And you're not going to get it in the school books because the school books have been changed and they're written by the Muslim Brotherhood. But nonetheless, we're not going there today. Thank you so much for joining us on the next chapter. Until next time, shalom.
Shalom.
Ta-ta.
Lily's saying bye.
Oh, no, it's not. It's saying, let me go. Let me go. Let me go.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.
We'll be dancing in the